The Bible is the most influential book of all time, but how much of it is even historical? Did any of it actually happen? I have been exploring this question in depth in this series, and we repeatedly keep seeing a pattern where archaeologists, historians, and Bible scholars will explain how we can know with confidence that large parts of the Bible never happened. And then religious apologists and theologians will push back, arguing for the text's historicity. They want to appear legitimate and paint this as an ongoing debate in academia with experts on both sides. And in order to do that, they resort to some of the most slimy and dishonest tactics. So today, I'm going to highlight the depths that religious apologists will go to defend the Bible at all costs by showcasing a rising star in Christian apologetics, an Egyptologist named Dr. David Falk. And trust me when I say, this story is an absolute dumpster fire. To have egg on your face. Slang. To look stupid and feel embarrassed because of something you said or did. In academia, repeatedly egging your own face destroys your reputation. It's the pathway to career suicide. And it's why even the most renowned scholars will usually couch their statements with humble dressing. Statements like,
if our interpretation is correct,
or
the data seems to indicate.
It's why they rely on other experts in the field to peer review their work and check for careless mistakes. And unfortunately, it's also why actual experts sound so unconvincing next to bold-faced, overconfident morons, like pseudoscience pushing conspiracy theorists and religious apologists.
You believe a giraffe evolved from a rock.
What you're about to see is an absolute masterclass in how to get egg on your face from the man who speedran the end of his career. This is Dr. David Falk.
Hello there.
An Egyptologist with 3 master's degrees and a PhD in Egyptology from the University of Liverpool. Legitimate credentials from accredited universities. The start of a promising career. Now, I have had countless religious apologists and debate me bros do response videos to my work attempting to coax a reaction out of me. And quite frankly, they're never worth wasting breath on.
Hi, I'm David Wood.
Cameron Bertuzzi here.
Go fuck yourself.
But when I saw that David, a PhD Egyptologist, had responded to one of my videos, I was genuinely excited to see his perspective.
We have popcorn.
Cock porn.
Cop porn.
Unfortunately, his arguments were disappointingly bad. Like, really bad. And we're gonna dive into them with some actual Bible scholars and historians today to break down just how cringy his takes are. But the reason that I didn't initially make a response video to him is that his video was essentially an hour-and-a-half long character jab, which quickly devolved into a high school level grudge rant.
I can't take this clown seriously. A guy like Holy Kool-Aid isn't serious. He's just a propaganda mouthpiece in an echo chamber. A bozo. He's doing a shtick. It's an emotional argument. This is really, really disgusting. I mean, even the name is suggestive that he's not someone to be taken all that seriously. That was just a hit piece. What would we expect from a historical amateur? This is a polemic. Really cringeworthy. These are not serious objections. Very, very disingenuous through ignorance or incompetence. I'm not sure which. He doesn't care one bit if he gets it right or true. All he cares about is playing to his audience. It's despicable. Appealing to that echo chamber. This is sort of a social psychological manipulation. It's meant to play to an audience. It is intellectually dishonest and morally reprehensible.
So for the last couple of years, I pretty much entirely ignored him. My ego just isn't that fragile, and as you'll soon see, Falk basically destroyed his own career in academia without me so much as lifting a finger. Over time, Falk's YouTube presence has continued to grow, and he's continuously slandered legitimate scholars, spread misinformation, and is now the favorite go-to scholar of other apologists like Inspiring Philosophy.
Welcome back to the channel, Dr. Falk. It's so good to have you back.
So I thought it was about time to highlight some of the incredibly slimy and dishonest tactics used by Falk and other apologists to show you exactly why scholars don't take religious apologists like him seriously. Number 1. Misrepresenting the Positions of Other Experts. This is William Dever, one of the most widely respected biblical archaeologists in the world, the director of the Albright Institute in Jerusalem, with a PhD from Harvard and over 50 years experience directing and excavating some of the most important dig sites in Israel. Dever has crossed paths with every major biblical archaeologist across multiple generations. So when he says,
of the 31 sites said in the biblical narratives to have been taken, that is, overrun or conquered by invading Israelites, only 2 or 3 show any sign of destructions at the requisite Lake Bronze Iron One age transition. To make a long story short, today not a single mainstream biblical scholar or archaeologist any longer upholds biblical archaeology's conquest model. Not one.
Falk knows that Dever knows what's up, and Dever's credentials and academic reputation are impeccable. But in order to defend the historicity of the Bible, Falk has to counter this. So he does so like this.
This is more or less an older video of Bill Dever. Unknown to most people in my audience, Bill Dever and I are actually friends. We are actually conference buddies. When we go out to meet at conferences, particularly at Azor, him and I will often, share a coffee together. We've talked a lot, and he has softened a lot on these opinions. He's not so much the minimalist as he used to be.
Now, this is not a new tactic. Apologists have been lying about scholars having a change of heart for centuries, and it's usually hard to falsify, like when they lie about Darwin or Stephen Hawking having deathbed conversions. Unfortunately for Falk, Dever is still very much alive. So much so that he had just given a new lecture at one of his last public appearances only a couple years before Falk's video. And did he have a wild new change of tune?
I looked at the archaeological evidence first and then at the biblical text, and here is the bad news. It's mostly fiction. The book of Joshua is almost entirely fictitious. Of the 30 or more sites that are said in the books of Joshua and Numbers to have been destroyed, there is no evidence that a single one of them was destroyed by any oncoming Israelite forces.
He still has minimalist leanings. I mean, I'm not going to paint it otherwise. But he now sees that, say, the conquest is not so black and white as he originally presented it.
When you look at all of the archaeological evidence, all the way from the Egyptian Delta up through Jordan and into the West Bank and to Israel proper, there is simply no archaeological evidence in support of a unified military conquest, and a great deal of evidence against it.
Now, I tried reaching out to Dever through multiple avenues, and he is extremely hard to get a hold of, so I sent this video instead to a number of scholars to get their takes on it.
So this is remarkably disingenuous. Bill has really not softened at all when it comes to the conquest model.
Receipts. Scholarship is not. I had a side conversation with him, and he's softening on this. Great. That doesn't work. You have to engage with the recent publications. Like, receipts, my guy.
And the most damning evidence that Falk is entirely full of crap here is that a year and a half after Falk posted this video, Dever released another publication.
Surprise, motherfucker.
And on page 146 of that book, on the conquest, he says, there was no statistically significant military conquest of Canaan in the 13th to 12th centuries BCE. The evidence is overwhelmingly in support of various indigenous origins models, emphasizing long-term social and cultural evolution from Canaanite to Israelite ethnicity. No mainstream biblicist or archaeologist any longer espouses the conquest model.
Today, not a single mainstream biblical scholar or archaeologist any longer upholds biblical archaeology's conquest model.
Virtually word for word, Dever has reasserted as recently as last year the very same position he has held for the majority of his career.
Yeah, given this was 20 years ago, things have changed. Things have changed a lot. 20 years ago, I would completely agree with Dever that no mainstream archaeologist would have believed in an Israelite conquest. Today, that has changed. Today, you do find people who do believe in an Israelite conquest, and mainstream scholars. It's amazing what a few decades can do. In the 1990s, absolutely, I would definitely agree, you would not have found a single mainstream biblical scholar that would have said that there was an Israelite conquest. Today, the pendulum has shifted.
Rather than talking about how Deaver has changed, now Falk is talking about how the field has significantly shifted to the point that there is a minority of scholars who think the conquest model is historical. But this is also wildly misrepresentative. There have always been scholars who have endorsed the conquest model. They're called apologists. They've been around the entire time. There is no pendulum swinging back and forth. As he even acknowledges, the consensus view, the majority of scholars still flatly reject the conquest model, and that includes Bill Deaver. So this is misrepresentative of the state of the field in multiple different ways.
There are actually many Egyptologists who do believe in an exodus. There's a large number of Egyptologists who are not fundamentalist Christian, but are devout Muslims. Many devout Muslims believe in an exodus.
That's a bizarre claim. He's basically saying it's not because of Christian dogmatism that scholars, archaeologists believe in the Exodus. It's because of Muslim dogmatism.
But misrepresenting a scholar's position is just the first tool in the apologist toolkit. When clashing with the academic consensus, rather than presenting a case against it, gathering evidence, and submitting it for peer review, like pretty much all the rest of scholarship does, David instead takes to his YouTube channel to publicly deface the character and credibility of anyone who disagrees with him. Even people in fields where Falk has zero expertise, like biblical scholarship.
Dan McClellan lies frequently. You are a pathetic, bitter clown. Evangelicals deserve better than the question-avoiding ramblings of a washed-up, vindictive clown.
And what about this guy? This is Dr. Israel Finkelstein, the professor emeritus at Tel Aviv University and the head of the School of Archaeology and Maritime Cultures at the University of Haifa, two of Israel's most renowned universities. He's a member of the Israel Academy of Sciences and Humanities and has directed some of the most important archaeological digs in Israel, including Megiddo and Shiloh. Oh, and he won the Dan David Award, which is essentially the Nobel Prize of History. And for years, Finkelstein has been rather vocal about the evidence against the Israelite conquest of Canaan. And here's what Falk had to say about him.
Israel Finkelstein is kind of a discredited scholar at this point in Israel. It only took a generation to really disprove most of everything that Israel Finkelstein had said. He only really has a following now in North America, where he's still sort of given this cult status, but back at home in Israel, he's not taken too seriously.
This is another misrepresentation of the field. Israel Finkelstein is very much a respected scholar still.
I'm sure David has his finger on the pulse of the archaeological community in Israel. But can I just say pot, meat, kettle here? It's like, seriously, for this guy to be calling out Israel Finkelstein as a discredited, a disgraced scholar, David, do you have any self-awareness?
To try to suggest that Israel Finkelstein is not taken seriously anymore. Ridiculous isn't even the right word. The man has forgotten more about biblical archaeology than David, I think, could hope to ever learn.
In addition to his best-selling books, Israel Finkelstein has published over 120 peer-reviewed papers in over 60 academic journals in multiple languages. And these are some of the best journals in the field of archaeology. We'll take a look at Falk's portfolio in a minute for contrast, but Finkelstein has also participated in over a dozen major excavations, most of which he's led, some of them lasting for decades, which, according to his CV, is a dozen more than Falk has.
He kind of pushed the biblical minimalism envelope a bit too far.
And it was only a matter of time before David pushed the envelope of his smear tactics a little too far. When asked about the work of Oxford PhD, BBC presenter, and the professor of Hebrew Bible and Ancient Religion at the University of Exeter, Francesca Stavrakopoulou, David had this to say about her.
We have Francesca Stavrakopoulou, who's a well-known skeptic. What are your thoughts on Francesca Stavrakopoulou's work? Okay. Now that would be difficult to pronounce if you didn't know how to do it. Stavrakopoulou. Stavrakopoulou is she's fringe.
Okay, she's out there.
He then went on to massively misrepresent her work and the positions she espouses before dropping this bombshell.
I don't have a high opinion of her work. I never have had a high opinion of her work. I also think she's kind of a waste of time too. She's window dressing. She's theological window dressing. She's basically attractive. And that's why she's always featured on, say, BBC shows. It's because she's one of the few theologians that doesn't look like an old gray man who's dusty around the ears. That's going to get you an audience. Not to be crass about this, but when you start doing theology by cup size, that's a bad start. And it's really clear that that's what they're doing with this. And she plays it too. She plays it too. You know, it's not like she isn't doing this. I think her work is atrocious. I think how she presents herself is not as a serious scholar. And she's really on the periphery of, say, liberal theology.
Needless to say, Falk immediately began to receive backlash.
Mispronouncing her name was a bad start. Getting her scholarship wrong and laughing at your misunderstanding of her scholarship was a bad start. Wildly misunderstanding the academic consensuses within the field of Hebrew Bible was a bad start. Saying that she's doing theology by cup size is abhorrent and misogynistic.
Scholars across the spectrum, even from evangelical seminaries, came together and signed a petition condemning Falk's statement, which they sent to the Vancouver School of Theology, where he was a research associate. David had Falked around, and he was about to find out. VST promptly clarified on their Facebook page that Falk never actually held a faculty or staff position, but rather was an unpaid research associate with a non-teaching position. Basically, he had a glorified library card, and they revoked it. Feeling the heat, Falk defensively posted a half-assed non-apology before doubling down on his statement. You would think that an apologist would be better at apologizing. His producer, Kiara Falk, who doubles as his wife, was quick to defend his misogyny.
Stavrakopoulou is a tenured professor. Any man that doesn't tell her to button up her blouse and start using her brain is a misogynist. Ken Kitchen never swaggered down the British Museum dressed like a Chippendales dancer.
Even stating that she didn't think he went far enough. For the record, this is the super immodest Chippendale dancer outfit that Francesca wore on her BBC documentary. But poor David was being persecuted for his free speech. Even his own live streams weren't safe from the cancel culture mob.
What do you think was Abraham's cup size?
I think that's an inappropriate question, given that I have also basically apologized for that.
Was that
I think
before or after you doubled down and said Stavrakopoulou was doing exactly what you said she was when you insulted her?
Wow, that's a class act there, man. Class act.
I mean, I have the screenshot.
You're gone.
Let me say one thing.
Okay. Sure.
And I'd like to get on and interrupt to all these gentlemen who are slamming my husband and basically insisting that women be sexualized and harassed. And you're attacking my husband for defending women?
Falk was defending women? Well, if that isn't the rewrite of the century, he basically accused Francesca of being a double DEI hire. And to the shock and amazement of everyone, the VST also revoked her library card, aka her research associate position. Now, at this point, I wish that I could say that Falk apologized, learned from his mistakes, and took some time for introspection. Maybe to reflect on the fact that if Oxford and Exeter actually did theology by cup size, he would have tenure by now. But instead, he posted a revenge tweet. A declaration of war. They decided to exercise the nuclear option and go after my affiliation at the Vancouver School of Theology. Now that they've taken that away from me, I have nothing left to lose. They don't realize that this was the shackle that held me back. Now I am weapons free. Dan has no idea what he has just unleashed. this isn't even his final form. Now, had he not been so dishonest, smug, and misogynistic, and if he wasn't now being propped up by massive apologist channels, I probably wouldn't have made this video. I mean, it feels kind of mean punching down and making a video that's gonna end his entire non-career. But going back and watching his response video to me, I couldn't help but notice example after example of glaring hypocrisy. For instance, I called him a fringe scholar. He's a rare breed of fringe Egyptologist based on the many fringe positions that he's espoused on his public channel and elsewhere on YouTube.
At this point, I still hold to a universal flood, and I do affirm a historical Adam and Eve.
And this visibly pissed him off.
And I'm not a fringe Egyptologist. Okay? Let's set that record straight.
But then he turns around and calls an accomplished, well-respected mainstream scholar fringe?
Stavrakopoulou is, she's fringe. Okay, she's out there. I am not a fringe Egyptologist. My Egyptological work is entirely mainstream.
What Egyptological work? Since his PhD dissertation, Falk has almost no peer-reviewed publications. He had a chapter in a book writing the coattails of his mentor, the religious apologist James Hoffmeyer. He had a 4-page article in the Biblical Archaeology Review, which is more of a popular magazine than a strictly academic journal. Seriously, it has an impact factor of 0.03 and is ranked 26,623 out of 27,955 journals. And even that article was mostly pictures and Bible verses. He wrote 7 pages for a book put out by Baker Publishing Group, which is a publishing company focusing on Christian education, missions, and ministry. Oh, and worst of all, he sought out predatory publishers to get his work published. He accused me of not knowing how to tell the difference between a reliable and unreliable source because I showed a clip from a documentary on a well-respected scholar's book, which happened to be featured in the History Channel.
If you're an archaeologist, you can judge the sources. Holy Kool-Aid is completely unable to judge the sources because he doesn't have the requisite education to do that.
I've been critical of the History Channel in the past in this same series.
I'm baffled.
Meanwhile, literally 2 minutes before this, in your response video, you cited the channel responsible for ancient aliens to make the case for another extremely spurious miracle hailstorm in which God intervened on Easter Monday almost a millennium ago to slaughter nearly 1,000 soldiers. Which is why, in the very next sentence, I critiqued the documentary's claim rather than taking it at face value. That's a bit of an overstatement by the History Channel. Yet despite accusing me of not knowing how to spot a credible source, I need to re-emphasize this. Falk literally sought out predatory journals to get his work published. For anyone not in the know, trustworthy academic journals are free to publish and are subscription-based. Their customers are universities, libraries, and research institutions, so they have an obligation to fact-check everything meticulously. Predatory journals, by contrast, will bombard graduate students and recent PhDs with offers to publish their work for a fee. They have the appearance of legitimacy, but are for vanity only, are not peer-reviewed, and will publish anything you pay them to publish. As was made abundantly clear when David Mazieres and Eddie Kohler submitted a paper to one of them titled, "Get Me Off Your Fucking Mailing List." It had an abstract, an introduction, charts, and even a summary. And the predatory journal published it!
If you're an archaeologist, you can judge the sources.
Boy, how embarrassing!
And the funniest part about this is that in Falk's critique of the History Channel documentary, he completely misrepresents the source material in exactly the same way that he was accusing them of doing.
It's interesting that they use that piece of the History Channel here, because the History Channel is not actually reading from the archaeological report. Because on volume 3, the very volume they're showing there, page 17, it talks about the late Bronze Age destruction layer that they found.
It is kind of embarrassing to watch someone who claims to be an expert be so confidently wrong about something. See, unbeknownst to David Falk, I actually did have a copy of Kathleen Kenyon's archaeological report, and page 17 says nothing of the sort. In fact, page 17 confirms confirms the History Channel's assessment and completely contradicts Falk's claims. It states how Kenyon found a large Middle Bronze Age wall which collapsed long before the time of Joshua, followed by a prolonged buildup of silt, implying that the city was abandoned, and then finally there was evidence of a small Iron Age settlement after the time of Joshua. Exactly what the History Channel stated. Now, I reached out to Falk to see if maybe he made a mistake and listed the wrong page number, and here's what he had to say. You are correct that I made a mistake in citing Kenyon. That unfortunately often happens to me when I depend on rote memory. Kenyon did not discover that late Bronze Age destruction layer. That was actually Garstang. However, she does mention it in Volume 3, page 2. Page 2 does mention Garstang's report and says that he completely gaffed up his dates. Garstang excavated in the 1930s before the invention of radiocarbon dating, and he incorrectly analyzed the pottery samples that he found. In fact, Garstang's misattribution of the Middle Bronze Age destruction to Joshua was one of the very reasons for Kenyon's extensive excavation. Now, before Falk gets all smug on me and brings up Nigro's more recent reports, I want to be clear that I only bring up Kenyon's report to showcase Falk's sloppiness and hypocrisy. I acknowledged in my original video that this report by Kenyon was outdated and that Nigro had discovered more recent evidence of occupation in Jericho during the late Bronze Age. But even Nigro's most recent report emphasizes that Jericho in this time period was a massively scaled down Egyptian vassal state, a shadow of its glory days, and he estimates it was only about 4.5 hectares. For comparison, here is the city of London. 4.5 hectares is about the size of Wembley Stadium, or it's about the size of Red Square. By the way, this shit wasn't cheap, but it's a part of the process of doing good research in order to make quality videos for you guys. So if you appreciate that and you want to say thank you, you can either chuck me a few bucks on PayPal or make a per video pledge on patreon.com/holykoolaid. Thanks.
The walls of Jericho were destroyed many centuries before Joshua's time.
Now it's talking about City 4. City 4 is the Middle Bronze fortifications, not the Late Bronze destruction layer. So it's ironic that they show Volume 3 of the archaeological report, but are actually summarizing volumes 1 and 2, the Middle Bronze fortifications. It's very ironic. And frankly, it's the sort of standards I've come to expect from the History Channel. But then again, too, if you're an archaeologist, you can judge the sources.
What the hell are you smoking, my dude? Kenyon didn't find a late Bronze Age destruction layer. They're showing Volume 3 and summarizing Volume 3 because Volume 3 talks about the Middle Bronze fortifications which were destroyed before the time of Joshua. When I realized just how slimy he was and the level of Falk's hypocrisy, and I saw that his audience was growing, I couldn't keep silent any longer. So I teamed up with 3 PhD scholars to examine not just his tactics, but the actual claims and critiques that he made of my videos to see if his criticisms of my work actually hold water. And I'll be dropping those right as this video goes live and link to them below. But if you still think that Falk is an honest actor and is simply misunderstood, I have one more slam dunk to share with you. You see, when I first dropped my video, I mentioned Falk for all of 2 minutes, and most of it wasn't even negative. But his hour-and-a-half flip-out response was largely backlash over one thing that I said. I called him a creationist. Dr. Falk himself is a creationist.
Wow! I'm a creationist. Boy, answers in Genesis would be surprised to find out I'm a creationist. I am not a creationist. Yeah, Holy Kool-Aid here is just calling me a creationist as a ad hominem attack. How does this support his argument one bit to call me a creationist? It doesn't. It's an irrelevant piece of information that's not even true. I am not a creationist. What can you say about this other than, he hasn't done his research? He hasn't researched me. He doesn't know anything about me. He just knows I'm a Christian and, brands me as a creationist. Good work, Holy Kool-Aid. Nicely done. I don't know where he gets that from.
As someone attempting a career in academia, Falk knows that creationism is pseudoscience, and he doesn't want to be seen as fringe.
I'm not a creationist. He's doing these ad hominem attacks to debase what I say. If this is the best he can do, wow. His argument is pretty weak. Pretty weak. I'm not a creationist.
Methinks he doth protest too much.
You know, he's pulling that out of thin air, and it's hard to take that seriously. It's slandering me by calling me a creationist. He doesn't care one bit if he gets it right or true.
But his audience are largely creationists, so he rides the line between creationism and belief in evolution, saying things like,
I am not a creationist. I'm not an evolutionist either. I'm not a creationist.
Which really gives me Candace Owen vibes.
I'm not a flat earther. I'm not a round earther. Actually, what I am somebody who has left the cult of science.
But when he's speaking to a Christian audience on an evangelical channel, his mask comes off, revealing who he really is. This was him just 6 months before I made my video.
Now, I don't have it in for creationists. I'm a creationist myself. I am not a creationist. I'm not a creationist. I'm not a creationist. I'm a creationist myself.
You can say a lot of things about me, Falk, but don't you dare tell me that I haven't done my research.
He hasn't done his research.
What the fuck? So, you tell me, is Falk an honest scholar going wherever the truth leads? Or is he slimy and dishonest, speaking out of both sides of his mouth, depending on who he's talking to? Massive thank you to Dan, Josh, and Kip for helping me with both of these videos. They are absolute legends. I've linked to all of their channels below, so make sure that you go check out their work, subscribe to them, and let them know that I sent you. Check out part 2. Thanks for watching, and as always, dare to be curious, but don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Definitely don't drink the Kool-Aid, because real men drink whiskey.
No, Falk. The masculinity of real men isn't that fragile. We drink whatever the fuck we want, but sometimes the Kool-Aid is poisoned.